Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today, guys, we're going to be jumping down into the world of Bitcoin, taking a look at some on-chain data, taking a look at the charts at macro level, and giving my thoughts and opinions on what I think is going on. As I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, smash that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe? You can always unsubscribe later. And if you haven't joined us in Discord, you're missing a trick. Check it out. Linked in the description down below. It's the first place we go to notify you of everything that's going on in the crypto space. Keep a finger on the pulse of crypto by joining us down in Discord. Let's jump right down into this video and start talking about what's going on with Bitcoin here. So let's actually start things off with, I think, this one. So we saw our weekly close position. We did close just a little high here at 29,000. We start to come down again. You can see that this is basically just bouncing around in our supply zone. So I think it's time we probably start jumping into some of the other data as to kind of why we see this. Right, we can see that obviously it was previously demand, an area where there was lots of buying. Since this was lost over here in June 2022, this has suddenly become an area where those positions that were trapped can now kind of come out at neutral positioning. And you can tend to find that demand turns into supply and so forth. So a natural point of rejection. Think of it as support and resistance if you want, or supply and demand depending on how you want to look at it. So yeah, we can see ourselves getting rejected from this area. This area, for clarity, is 28,881 and 31,848. It's between those two ranges. Okay, cool. So that's actually... now we kind of see, our weekly close position here, and we've kind of seen rejection from there. I think it's probably worth jumping down into the on-chain data and taking a look at what's been going on. So in here, we can see that we have our inflows and our outflows since the 1st of January 2023. We've had 3.4193 million going onto exchanges and 3.3618 million coming off the exchanges, basically meaning that there is more than 57,000 Bitcoin gone onto the exchanges and has stayed there. That's a bearish tell, not a bullish one. We can see here that the Bitcoin balance or the exchange balance of Bitcoin has been on the increase since the 1st of January, and you can see the 30-day average of the net difference change, that is between these two numbers of the inflows and the outflows, is very much more Bitcoin going onto the exchanges than is coming off. Now, why is that important? That's important because that is a very bearish thing to be looking at. And why is it bearish? It's bearish because you only tend to move Bitcoin to an exchange if you're looking to sell. You don't generally just move Bitcoin to an exchange and just leave it there for no good reason. It can happen that sometimes people move Bitcoin in and around and all that kind of stuff, but for the most part, the most logical explanation for it is that Bitcoin has flowed to the exchange because they want to make that Bitcoin available for purchase. They want to sell it. Okay, so when we see a significant amount or more in the way of inflows and outflows, typically we think of that as a bearish position. Now, I want to be clear, this is not the be-all and end-all of analysis. This is just one angle to be looking at the market. And 57,000 Bitcoin isn't the most Bitcoin in the world, but it is a significant number when we have low inflows and outflows. Okay, so we have to kind of consider those things. Now, what do I mean by low? Well, we can jump into the inflows and the outflows on the line graphs, and we can see, how it's kind of pretty much married up with the occasional spike a little bit higher. Now, if we take a look at the 1st of January 2019 through to the 30th of April 2019, so the same time period, we can see that we had significantly higher volumes being pushed through, but a very similar situation. We did actually have more going on to the exchanges than was coming off, but we are getting closer and closer to double the amount of volume being transacted upon or moved upon, right? Moved around the chain, flowing to and from the exchanges. So we know that the volumes are down significantly lower, around 40% odd. So we know that there is a significant lower volume in terms of being pushed to and from the exchanges than what we had in the last previous start of the bullish market. So that to me doesn't give me a lot of confidence and in thinking that we are, seeing a bullish market right now. I think if anything, the volumes are a bit too low on that one, and actually it's not a good indication of bullish or bearish overall. Now, the things that we do like to look at, of course, are the supply and the demand, and I do like to think of the inflows being the supply and the outflows being the demand. So at the moment, we are in a slightly more bearish position than we are a bullish one. And I think that's important that we kind of reflect on that and take that with a pinch of salt, but use it to our advantage and trying to ascertain where the market is going. Now, if we have got inflows and outflows in the way they are, how are the different wallets behaving? What are the behavior types of the different wallets? And if we come and start down on the lower side, we can see Bitcoin Dust. This is a wallet, a number of wallets that have over 0.01 Bitcoin in them. Okay, and we can see these are on the increase here. So we've got 11.8 million wallets that have over 0.01 BTC in them. You can see that's been pushing to the upside. This happens because there's this belief that we're in a bullish market, and retail really are in denial of the idea that things are as bad as they are in the global economy. And they are pretty bad. So there's no pivot to be seen as far as I can see from the Fed. And that will probably be confirmed later this week with another rate hike. And those rates are going to continue to hike, in my opinion. But we'll see how things do play out. And I could be wrong on that, but I would imagine that the hikes are going to continue. And that's going to basically continue to fiat being left in banks and stuff like that. We'll see how it kind of plays out. But ultimately, I'm not confident. The other thing that's quite worrying here when it comes to retail investors is that we do see a rise in credit card debt. It is extremely high. And at the same time as seeing a rise in debt, we are also seeing a decrease in savings. This basically, to me, tells me that we are seeing a lot of retail investors trying to sustain a lifestyle, and that is going to only end one way. One, with defaults on credit cards and no savings to pay for it, they're going to be left with no alternative but to sell. And this is something that I do think is just around the corner. Now, we do see our other data as well. For example, we can see mortgage rates are getting ridiculously high, and people who were on fixed-term mortgage rates are starting to come to a close, are looking at double their mortgage payments every single month going forward. And then, of course, we see a rise in the idea of downsizing. So there's a demand for housing at a specific level, whereas there's an insufficient demand at other levels. We're starting to see an imbalance in the housing market, and I'm starting to think that there's going to be a big catalyst to a move to the downside within the housing market. Ultimately, I don't think retail have this one right at all. As we move up into the higher retail wallets, over 0.1 Bitcoin for the krill, we have over 1 Bitcoin per wallet for the shrimps, and over 10 Bitcoin per wallet for the dolphins. We can see there's a lot of fluctuations here at the high net worth individual. They have been kind of dropping and pushing and dropping and so forth. They're not so convinced over what is going on. They're definitely overreacting to price movement. For example, they start selling at $28,000 Bitcoin and they start buying again at $29,000 Bitcoin. You can see it's a typical retail investor, someone who's overreacting and acting emotionally when it comes to the price movement of Bitcoin. So you can see that volatility right in there. As for the shrimps and the krill, they continue to believe that we're in a bullish market, and as such, they continue to build those positions and continue to push their wallet count data higher. For example, krills are currently on 4.3 million wallets. We've got the shrimps, which are on 994,000. So pretty significant amount of shrimp wallets that hold at least 1 Bitcoin. And we can see a slight decrease over here on the 10 Bitcoin or more. So as we start to scale up in the size of their wallets, in the number of Bitcoin that they hold in a wallet, we can start to see that they become a little bit more controlled over what they are doing, rather than the FOMO that you see at the lower side. So if we come up into sharks, whales, and kraken, we get a pretty good picture as to what is going on. We can see that our sharks have been coming out pretty steadily, and they continue to kind of stabilize where they are at the moment, which is back down at the November levels of wallet counts. I'll show you that in a moment. The whales have been moving down, recently pushing up over the last couple of days. As you can see, as the price was pushing up, they were pushing up. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. And we can see that the Kraken, the 10,000 Bitcoin per wallet, well, they've been on the decrease, and they've dropped down to 116 wallets now from 121. So you can see that they have been providing a lot of the supply of Bitcoin as retail investors have been FOMOing in, as the bulls try to push Bitcoin above 30K again. And we can see that within the data. I spoke about it this morning. The structure is bearish, but it is being, in my opinion, manipulated in those directions. We can see that the Kraken and the whales here are potentially taking advantage of all that extra liquidity that is coming into the market. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the bigger pictures. Okay, so if we take a look at our sharks over a 365-day view, you can see that they purchased up in November lows in December, pushing their wallet count data really high. And at the same time as that is going on, you can see that they bought in before the pump to the upside. As soon as we started pumping to the upside, they start to use that liquidity to exit their positions, and all the way until you get to about $30,000, and they basically just come right out of their positions. And you can see that right in here. They're back down to these low levels, right? And this is clear trading activity. This is basically being able to see what is going to happen before it does, and basically doing an absolute stellar job at doing just that, buying low and selling high, unlike the retail investors, which have a habit of buying high and selling low. Now, our whale investors are still steadily coming out. It might look great on the smaller micro data, like if you look at last 1 month or you look at the last 3 months, things don't look as bearish. But when you start zooming out to a 365-day view, you can see a pretty clear picture that things are not overly positive. They were selling the June lows, they were selling the November lows, and they came all the way down here in March of a new low in the number of wallets that have over 1,000 Bitcoin, 2002. Now we can see that they are hovering around the 2015 wallets at the moment, and I'm not surprised that I'm more than likely going to be thinking that these are going to continue this downward pressure until retail investors are selling the Bitcoin to them. And we can see that right inside this data as well from previous cycles. So ultimately, yeah, nothing bullish to be seen on whales buying Bitcoin or any of that kind of nonsense. If you see it in the space, the data just simply isn't there. You can zoom in and you can focus in on just like 1 month, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever, and it might make it look like it's doing reasonably well. But ultimately, on the zoomed out view, it is not looking good. Now, in terms of our Kraken-sized wallet, well, we can see that they have been accumulating during the bear market, and they've just started to come out a little bit. Is this the beginning of the end of the Bitcoin cycle, and is the Kraken getting ready to dump? And what I mean is, are they about to do what they did back in 2018, which is accumulate during this bear market, pull back down, little surge to the upside, then bam, flood the market with excess Bitcoin, bringing in the lows? Is that ready? Are we ready for that? I don't think we are. We're not going to be ready for this to happen until retail starts selling, in my opinion. Only once retail are selling are we going to see this happen. It could be that the Kraken-sized wallet right now is actually just trying to be a catalyst for that. It could be that it's trying to push the market down just to get the retail investors to start panic selling and starting to bring in the next kind of series of low prices. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this unfolds. But for now, I would say that it's definitely not looking overly bullish in the way that it is being structured out. Now, from our charts, what do we see? Well, we can see on the daily chart, we are in a bullish structure at the moment. This still remains true. And it's going to remain true until we kind of break that structure, which won't happen for probably months, if I'm being honest. And that's the thing, when we take a look at these macro pictures, we are talking about months. We aren't talking about weeks. We aren't talking about days. We're talking about months into years playing out, okay? So on this daily chart, I'll be looking at a minimum kind of expectation of time to be at least 3 months worth of things taking time to play out, right? And now I can be wrong on that. I can't time the market, but when I take a look at a daily chart, I'm going to be looking for at least 90 candles worth of data to kind of correspond to a move. So when we see this move to the upside here, and I'm calling out coming down to these fair value gaps, I'm talking about that probably happening over the next 3 months or so. Some of these will be quicker than others, ones either down here. And likewise, when we talk about 17,000 or a new lower low, we are talking months worth of data before we see that happen. Could be quicker, but could be later than that. But it gives us a bit of a ballpark figure. Now, you can see that we rested on the 50 EMA. We're coming back down. My expectations are to move down to the equilibrium area at some point soon. So again, we'll see how it kind of plays out. But you can see the manipulation, and we can see the price being pushed up and leaving the fair value gaps behind in an unnatural way. Take a look at it on the weekly. You can see all the way down here at $17,000. We've been stacking these ones up. So my expectations are that we will lose these, and we will come back down and we'll retest those lows, and we'll be moving down into new lower lows, in my opinion, at some point in the very near future. Whether that is 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line, I do not know. Ultimately, yeah, that's kind of where I place Bitcoin at the moment. We had our channel, we broke down from it, we tested it, we broke down from it. Ultimately, things are not looking brilliant here for Bitcoin at the moment. But let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. If you have found it useful and informative, smash that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, then why not subscribe? And if you haven't yet joined us in Discord, check it out. Linked in the description below. Until the next one, have a fantastic day.
We are not financial advisors. None of what we have communicated verbally or in writing here should be considered as financial advice. It is not. Do your own research before investing in any digital asset or affiliate offers, and understand that investing in any crypto is risky. If you do, you need to be prepared to lose your entire investment. This video is for information and entertainment purposes only. All our videos are strictly personal opinions. Please make sure you do your own research and never take our opinions for financial guidance. There are multiple strategies, and not all strategies fit all people. Our videos are not financial advice.